Welcome back to another wonderful episode of Brews Business. And this time we have traveled all the way out here to Hickory, North Carolina to visit the famous coffee camper. This is Brad Williams. If you haven't met him yet from one of the previous episodes, almost a year ago, a little less than a year ago. I think it was last fall. He's owner of the coffee camper, and he's wrote 3 books, family, Christian, businessman, coffee fanatic, marketing guy. A lot of my marketing passions and careers and stuff started out with this guy here. So without further ado, Brad, welcome back to Brews Business.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Like I said, it's been a little while since we've talked. Yeah. So what's new? What's happened?
Well, the business is growing, which is great. And I actually don't know if we had the coffee camper in its current, as I say, like beauty and like all its glory the way it is now when we talked before. So before we were just kind of set up alongside the road and some parking spaces, but now we have like picnic tables and a drive-through, and we put out cornhole and giant Jenga, and we make it a whole experience, right?
Yeah.
So, which was always kind of the dream, and we still have dreams to make it an even bigger experience where the camper is just kind of the center of it. So
well, that's exciting. So definitely some upgrades and things like that since we last talked.
Definitely.
Much needed. Business is good. Okay. How's family?
Family's great. Our daughter's doing everything in the world and everything she can do. So there's theater and horses and tennis, and my wife's working and comes in half the time during the school year, once or twice a month, actually 3 or 4 times a month, and does deliveries before she goes to work and delivers to the schools, because we deliver now to 4 schools once a month. Nice. For the teachers, which is really fun. So
now you are letting me take home this delicious bag of Ring of Fire, which I tried earlier. Tell me a little bit about the Ring of Fire.
So the roaster hasn't given me the exact details of the blend, but I do know it's 2 parts. It is 2 parts Central American and 1 part African blend, which is nice because it gets that little bit of extra robust of the African, but still like earthy and caramelly and walnut type tones that you get from like a lot of the Central American soil. So yeah, it's really nice. It's been a great blend too, because it's a dark roast, but people are often surprised with the expectation that dark roast is going to taste burnt. It's going to taste too bold, whatever, and they like how smooth it is, but they can tell that it's still a full roasted, darker roasted coffee than a traditional, like, medium roast that they're used to often getting. It's too light. So yeah. So it pleases a lot of palates. It's a good way to put it.
Now you've got this saying too on a couple of your shirts and mugs. Yep. Better coffee to do greater things.
Yeah. So
now, is that a verse? Or?
Yeah. Well,
I see it says John.
So it's inspired by a verse. I have people all the time be like, I don't think that's in the Bible, and I'm like, well, half of it is. So I'm like, hopefully it'll
the
make you
messaging
look.
Part of it
look,
is,
go find out. But it's actually one of the things I'm really passionate about is in John 14:12, Jesus says, "You will do greater things" to his believers, and I'm like, that meaning greater things than even he accomplished. And I was like really passionate because I'm like, don't be a complacent Christian. Like, go do greater things. He said you do greater things. Don't sit around on your tail and not do something. Like when he literally said you could do great things. And so I'm really passionate about that. And so the kind of commentary, right, is to help give people not just better coffee, but a better experience when they walk in here. So when they leave, they'll want to go out and do great things. So we're really passionate that when someone comes in, especially in the morning, sometimes they drag in, eyes are half closed, they're not feeling great. But if you can make them leave lit up with a smile, that doesn't just change their day. It'll change the day of every person they encounter, right? Because suddenly when you're feeling better, everybody around you feels better. So that's where our heart is like really changing lives through that experience of when they come through the shop.
So this is kind of built into like the culture and the why behind
exactly.
Coffee. No, not just delivering great coffee.
Yeah. And then that actually is a perfect segue. The other slogan we use a lot is we don't we don't serve coffee. We serve people coffee, because the focus is on serving people. And I feel like in a culture where we focus on serving a product, we need to get back to serving people the product, right? Like if you focus on the people first and the product second, you still make a great product, but you make the person the most important thing, not the product the most important thing.
Okay. And then you've got 3 books.
Yeah.
The third one I'm not aware of.
So the one on top is an art book that I did for my very good friend, Ivan Tirado, our daughter's godfather as well. And he lives in Connecticut. He's an amazing sculptor. He does all kinds of art, but amazing sculptor. And when I lived up north, he would go do art shows and wanted a coffee table book. So essentially I did poetry that was the voice of the art throughout the book for his different pieces. So it kind of created a story.
Okay. And then Charity is the one
Charity
right
is the
that,
novel.
Right?
Actually, so we're going backwards in order in the right reverse order. Charity, I wrote I think it was 2009 or so. Actually, I think it was 2014. Yeah, something like that. And so anyways, Charity, What's in a Name is essentially a story of a man who is like a Wall Street guru, incredibly smart and 35, like millionaire kind of guy, right? Like makes all the connections, but has no real fulfillment. And through a series of events, adopts a young girl who's about 2 years old at the time he adopts her, and then has to do some things to save her life and use every string, pull every string, use every dime kind of situation, travel the world to find a solution and a way to save her. It's really, really cool. So it's feel good and suspense combined.
That's cool. And the original.
Yep, the first
Love
book I wrote.
Redefined.
Yep, which is interesting because I had
too.
Charity. Charity was in my mind before Love Redefined, but Love Redefined is literally the story of how I feel like God taught me what love really looks like, and really I wrote it over a period of a year, incorporating stories from that year, not just my past. So you could see not just how it works in like your marriage relationship or that kind of relationship, right? But in everyday relationships, friends, family, strangers, coworkers, whatever.
So now that we've got a little bit of a background of kind of like catching up on things you've changed in business, and people can now hear about the books and a little bit more about you. So in case they missed the first one, I don't even know if we talked about any of this in the first one with the books. First episode we recorded.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But now we've covered that, so that's good. What are some of the things in Campground Coffee that you're working on going forward? Like, what are you trying to improve or change?
Yeah. I think, well, one of the things we just did, it was kind of cool. We just introduced these. So we have a lot of customers who come in and get the exact same drink every single day. And what's cool about these is this is another way to do reward. So we usually do like a really traditional, like if you spend $50, you get $5 back reward, which is great. But sometimes you have customers who literally call in an order and say, hey, I'm running late to the office. Is there a chance you can just go and get my drink started? And they just like to come in, pay, and go. They like the experience of still walking in and out, but they don't want to wait for the 3 people in front of them. They do, and they're very kind about it. So what we did was we say, hey, why don't you pre-purchase 10 of your drinks? The 11th one will be free. It's the same dollar reward essentially that you get anyway, but it saves you time and it also saves us money, which is really cool because we save swipes right from every credit card purchase, because you're doing one credit card swipe for this versus 10. So that was a really cool thing we introduced, and it's taken off. We've already gone through almost 2 sheets of cards that I printed, so that was really cool.
Sweet.
Yeah, very popular. And the other thing is they're pre-purchased, right? So people are like, I already got coffee there, let me go get it there.
Well, in a business sense, it's a great idea too. You know, it's kind of like Starbucks is really a bank.
Right.
They're not a coffee shop.
Right.
You've heard about that, right?
No, but that's great. I get where you're going.
Because people do that with the gift cards.
Right.
You
Exactly.
know, like instead they're like, hey, well, if you purchase the gift card, reload it. They used to do like the unlimited drink thing.
Right. Or the bonuses.
Or the bonuses. Now they have your information, and so that's how they finance themselves or whatever. So like in a business sense, I think that's awesome.
It's been really good. And what also I've realized is, different people think differently, right? So for some people, the idea of spending $50 to get to reward seems so far off. But if they're just like, oh, I can just give you $50 and know that when my last drink is purchased, it's 10 drinks away, then I'll just get a free one. It's just a different mindset. So like, for example, a person who comes every morning gets a cappuccino. It's roughly a $5, 20-ounce cappuccino. She just prepaid roughly $50, got 10, but her 11th one we'll just make for free. And we track it not only on the card, but also in our POS system.
That's really cool. I like that.
The main reason we still do the card, even though we can do it digitally, is we're in a smaller area. And a lot of times people still like that physical representation of what they can't see digitally. So
that's true. Okay.
So it's that. Other new things. I mean, I think we're always looking at how we can reach the community the most. So like I said, we're adding a 4th school this school year, which we're really excited about. We already had delivered monthly. So we give them a specific day. It's usually one of our slower days of the week. That's a little easier. And usually 5 to 10 or more teachers will pre-order the day up until the day before, about 3 days early. You can order in advance. They put their name, the school name on it, and then that morning we deliver to them. So, and what's great is our daughter will be driving come December, and she can deliver to her school and the middle school next to them. So that'll be nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Any other improvements that you think trying to work on?
I think we're always looking at how can we improve everything from, our drive-through system to one of the things we really look forward to doing is as the drive-through is growing is getting a flex from Clover so that we'll be able to actually take orders outside. They'll print inside and we could have a constant person just handling drive-through only. They wouldn't even have to come inside. And that'll be nice as we want to keep things expedited because for a small shop, we've done a lot. The other day we made 9 different drinks in 20 minutes, right? Like, so we can move that fast. It's just having people in the right positions in the space.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's one. And then also staffing as we get busier too, of course.
Yeah.
We've gotten to where we almost always have to have 2 people in the mornings, especially during the school year for rush hour.
What's your drink of preference? Do you have a preferred drink? Like,
so,
man, every morning this is my thing.
So I would say I'm going to give you like 3 or something, but
Sure.
one is my Cortadito. I absolutely love a Cortadito, which I made for you earlier, and it's sweetened espresso with well, the way we do it in the camper because of just what we have available is steamed heavy cream. Traditionally in Spanish culture, use like a steamed sweetened condensed milk, like a heat and sweetened condensed milk.
Yep.
But it's kind of hard to store and use that. But the heavy cream really mimics it well if you do the right amount of sugar with the espresso. And so we do that layered. I'd say the other one, we have an original waterfall, and the reason we call them waterfalls. When we do our cold foams, when we do them, we do a different mix for every single one. No two are identical because it depends on what we're mixing. If we're mixing with say like brown sugar, cinnamon, something like that, it's a thicker mix. So we're going to use a little more half and half versus say like a liquid mixture, like a caramel hazelnut, something weird like that. Not I say weird, but just more liquid and something different. Then you have to use more heavy cream to get the same thickness and texture. And so we're doing it in such a way that it literally creates these little waterfall drizzles down the side. One of the TikToks I created, we literally put a waterfall sound effect behind. And so the original waterfall is a brown sugar cinnamon cold foam over a nice coffee. I usually actually like it with cold brew with caramel in it. And it's just crazy refreshing. So
people are loving the cold brews with the cold foam.
Yeah. And you saw earlier, we made 2 solar eclipses, which is a brown sugar espresso foam on top of a sweet cold foam on top of a vanilla iced coffee.
If you haven't seen that clip, you're going to find it on their Instagram or TikTok sometime soon. So,
yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Those are good. I love cortados. Cortados is really where I feel like that. Well, I believe you can really judge a good coffee shop or any coffee shop on a cortado because it shows how they can steam the milk properly and create the texture for it, right? And then also you get the equal parts espresso to be able to like properly assess and taste and whatever. Sometimes just tasting the espresso straight isn't just a pure judgment of the coffee shop. And if you go like maybe just like an iced coffee, or if you go with like a cup of coffee, there's so many drinks to be made with the espresso. So like it's not the same if you just get like an iced coffee or a hot coffee or pour over a drip or something. Although those also can be, and the other drinks can also be like a great, determination of coffee shop's good. But cortados is usually what I've done with all the coffee shops. And so you guys are great. That's good. But we started something new. Today's episode is going to be fairly quick. So since this is about 4 episodes ago, we started these Diary of a CEO conversation cards. Have you heard of them?
I believe I've heard of them. Like I think somebody posted something on LinkedIn or something. I saw about them.
So there's a podcast out, I believe it's in the UK or it's out in Europe, to where, it's the radio. It's funny. I was like, is someone on the stereo? So the Diary of a CEO conversation cards. There's a podcast out there in the UK where he has interviewed lots of really great, amazing entrepreneurs, and over the series of his podcast, he had guests write on them. Questions. So here's how it works. We're going to pull a card out. You're going to pull one, and you're going to ask the question. So we're going to start from the front. We're just going to pull one and answer it. We're done. We're going to put it in the back. So we're always answering something new on each episode. These cards help define the value that continuously drives humans as a collective, but also as their podcasts, and our podcast helps to create those connections. We've got these cards that are designed to help empower us and help stimulate raw and honest, unfiltered conversations like we've never known before. And so we're going to pull a card. That's the whole point of these. It's just to have like some of those raw, deep, meaningful, connecting cards. So go ahead and pull that top one.
All right. That one. Okay. Ooh, that's a good one.
What's the question?
What was the best conversation you ever had and why? Just kind of cheating. It's 2 questions.
The best conversation
you've ever had and why?
I want to say like one of the first conversations that come to mind is, and this will probably instigate some thoughts in your mind too. Some conversations with Papa.
Oh yeah,
with your dad. Yeah. I mean, I know that there's been so many good conversations. I'm just trying to think of one. Back with the double anchor plate stuff, I remember some of those really good conversations teaching about the business, and he was doing some lumber stuff. Some of the best conversations. One I remember like with my therapist. When we were working through some things over like where families like past or friends have like passed away and stuff, and man, I don't know. I have so many good conversations. Even like on Brews Business, I have so many good conversations too. Do you have any that come to mind?
It's hard. You know what comes to mind? The very first one that comes to mind is probably because it was incredibly integral and like life change for me. was when I was roughly 28, I think. I'd gone through all kinds of stuff, right? So I lost your grandmother, your nana, my mom, and I had gone through a breakup that was really traumatic. And I was just in a rough place and I was seeking God. I was just really seeking. And a friend of mine who constantly invited me to a Bible study that I kept saying no to going to. Right. It's like, no, that's okay. I'm good. I'm good. And then I finally started going, but his dad was, I won't just to kind of keep it on the PC, right? Like he was from a denomination, which I had grown up with some trauma from. And nothing negative incredibly, but just kind of like these preconceived notions that you have, like, oh, they're all like this, right? And so, but I was like, I'm going to test him. And he was from a denomination that doesn't often think about certain things of scripture that I kind of did believe in. And so I'll be honest, I wanted to test him. I wanted to ask him about one of those things and see how his response would be, right? So I went to him and I asked him about a subject matter that could have been really, really provoking. Yep. It could have, it could go two ways, right? Really, he could either just brush it off or he could speak against it or whatever. And his response was, well, I've never experienced it, but it's in scripture, so I can't deny it. And that was so incredible to me because it meant I could trust him. It meant he was willing to have a hard conversation about something that that he could have easily either dismissed or he could have degraded me and made me feel stupid or small. All these different things that he didn't. He just simply acknowledged like he hadn't experienced those particular things, but it didn't stop them from existing because it was in scripture. And if he was a man of God and believed in scripture, he shouldn't deny anything being available. And I love it because it's kind of somebody from the same denomination that's a really good friend of mine here often says, let's let God be God. Like, let's not be the ones to determine. Let's let God be God. If that shows up, it shows up and it's there. So I'm not going to deny it can exist because I'm not God, right? So that's that's kind of what the man was saying. And it gave me it was the first opportunity for me to be reintroduced to the possibility of having good mentors, having good conversations. And from there, I had many conversations with him and other people in that study group. But that was such a spark for my belief that there could be a real church environment, even if it was small, because there was like 10 of us in this small group, right? Study. But it did. And they were all different people, different backgrounds, stuff like that. But I'll tell you that I go back to that because it was really integral in my life and being able to believe, not just believe, right? I was a believer, but like being willing to like take some next steps, I guess you could say, with my faith. So yeah, that was a big one. Yeah. Good dude.
I can think of like any particular conversations where I'm like, man, this was the best. Like, keep competing with those conversations. Trying to figure
it
out
is hard. I mean, we're
like,
both involved in things where we engage with people all the time. Like I have a crazy good conversations here all the time. I have some amazing people who come through the shop and we'll literally stand in the drive-through 20 minutes when it's slow and just talk and just have great deep conversations and grow, from these things, and great men around me with great men's group studies. Actually, one of you were talking about that. And as I thought of when we were double shot in Tulsa at the bar and the little like bar seating at the top. It sound like I meant like the bar, but I mean like the bar stool seating at the top. And I don't remember, but we had some really cool conversations and I was trying to remember what they were about, but I just remember like that sticks out, like that memory sticks out. Cause I remember you and I just kind of really looking at each other being like, yeah, like when you're really like, yes, like you just can tell you're really like grasping at thought.
When you know.
But we've had those. We've had them together. We've had them on the phone. We've had them with others. I think when you're actively engaging people, you're going to have great conversations, hopefully, So, yeah.
Well, like we said, this is going to be a short episode, but do you have any questions or any thoughts for me or anything you want to share?
Well, I already asked him. It's cool. Like earlier, I asked you about like things to do with the camper. I flat told Braden earlier, I said, I don't invite a lot of people to give me thoughts or advice. After 25 years of marketing background and business hosting coffee parties in my house and doing coffee events and things like that Lisa and I have done for, churches and whatnot. I'm not just like really interested in hearing every single person's thought. I'm just not. One, because 90% of it has somebody's already told me, or I've thought it. One of the two, not necessarily my own, but someone, right?
Even if they're continually saying the same thing, like that's either positive or negative affirmation.
You've heard it so much, so I don't often ask for more information.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'm already working on some of those things. Like you and I were talking earlier, and some of those things were like, yeah, I'm actually already working on that. Just got to get there, right? But I wanted to hear your thoughts because of the different experiences you had, and there's some other things that like I want to talk about, like related to finance and deeper things, because there's things that you've experienced now that I haven't, So so you spoke to me about, we talked, I think the one that stood out the most that I kept mulling on was, I want to work on the consistency of the exterior. I think that was a really good statement. You brought up consistency of branding in your exterior being really important for the image of the coffee shop, from like the curb appeal. And I think that was really good. So, I mean, I think you've already answered them, and it was good.
Is there something on finance you want to talk about?
Not online, not publicly.
He's like,
I mean, what we'll probably end up talking about offline will just be things like how you can, restructure your finances when you've got financial investments that you need to restructure to a longer term, lower expense, so that you can have more of that for your own personal use or to repurpose for the business in a more important area. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and I think that's probably.
Do you have a bookkeeper?
Huh? Now we finally have someone to start working with on doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
How often do you talk to them?
No, we literally just started signing on with
okay.
somebody. Yep.
Right.
And
how often will you talk to them?
Probably once a month right now. I mean, as small a business as we are, right? Like for the most part, it's just me. I have one part-time person that works once or twice a month.
There's not a bunch of changes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, sometimes there is when you get starting those new relationships. There's a lot of changes, especially if you upgrade or downgrade or move or things like that. Like any of those, you definitely talk. Yeah.
Yep. But I'd say the baseline's pretty status quo. There's some areas where I already know where we can save money, and I've got some things in place to try to do that.
Sometimes those conversations are good. Like I said, affirmation on.
Oh yeah, I mean, so
you're doing something
particularly
right,
that I met with, I've got two people that were kind of advising us right now. One's an accountant that's just well recommended around the area, and she already gave me some great stuff that I'm like, great, I can implement that very quickly. And then the other one is a friend of ours from way back that does actually focuses on credit repair, but because a lot of her stuff is with small business owners, she was giving us stuff just like crazy rundown. I'm like, okay, these are the things I knew I needed to do, had no idea how, right? And so she's kind of got the how and the order, right? So I'm like, that's what I've been needing for a long time. And so it's things about moving your credit, your liability of credit off of your, business or off your personal more into your business, and building your credit for your business so that you have more purchasing power and less liability and better credit ratios for your personal things that I've been I get that, but I need a direction.
So I got my line of credit at the bank, and I got a credit card no limit. I think I have 7 business credit cards. Well, they each have their own purpose. Half of them aren't touched, aren't really needed. They're just there to have them.
Yeah.
There's a couple of banks that report to personal, some that don't.
Right. And that's one of the things we talked about.
American Express. So apparently they're supposed to report to personal. And I was on the phone. I got a call when I got this new card, and American Express called me, and he's like, hey, I'm a representative, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, is this, credit limit or whatever is going to work with you on these cards? And this one technically doesn't have a limit, whatever. He's like, is that going to work for you? I'm like, oh, yeah, that's fine. Like, sure, yeah, duh.
Right.
Whatever. But anyways, he's like, I was telling him how this doesn't report to my personal, and it's great. And he's like, really? He's like, it's not supposed to. I'm like, well, don't make it.
Right,
don't touch it. He's like, don't worry, I'm not going to touch it. But I found out, so American Express for me doesn't report to personal. Chase doesn't report to personal. Discover and Capital One does.
Yeah.
So if you are using those cards, it's going to affect your credit.
Right. And that's one of the reasons I was excited, because she's like, I know the ones that do and don't.
Yep.
So I know who to go to and who not, rather than me playing the game of trying to figure that out. Right. So that's where, like I said, we've been really, my wife and I have been really needing some advisement, because if you can have someone who can help you do that in advance of you, then you don't have to make some of those mistakes on the way. And we've done some good things, but we've made some mistakes, right?
And Amex and Chase didn't check my credit either. So I find that some of that's interesting. Arvest did, of course, because I'm a guarantor on that, and they check my personal. Now, if you use some of those cards, they change your credit, your personal, and your business has a credit score, DUNS, but there's another one. SBSASS, something like that. And it's what the government uses as part of the SBA program.
Oh, okay.
You don't know until you do it, but that credit score is between 1 and 300.
Okay.
When I tried to go through the SBA program a year and a half ago, I was 2 points shy of their limit, of their acceptance. I needed to be, I think, a 170. I was a 168. Like, are you kidding me?
Wow.
And they're like, why? And of course, here's a dozen reasons why. We can't really tell you.
Yeah.
Why? I'm like, okay. I spent hours, late nights, tracking down paperwork and doing all those projections and trying to paint this picture of all this stuff. And I'm glad it didn't work out because, yeah. So we'll learn from it.
Yeah, sure.
But
well, that's what I was saying. Like you've got some of those. So as I move forward, like I think that's where I'm always like, okay, do you know anything about like how these should be structured? But it kind of sounds like we're on the same page, like what our friend told us and what she does, because that's what she does for a living.
I learned too that some of these purchases that you've made in the last year, some of them should have gone onto your balance sheet, not shown on your profit and loss.
Gotcha.
Legally.
Right.
They need to be shown as assets. The furniture, the fixtures, the games, the T-shirts, all that stuff. If you want to show it under the profit and loss, and you bought a bunch of T-shirts, or whatever it is.
Well, from a tax perspective, some of the equipment is, and some of the stuff is, but yeah, I didn't do it with everything.
But if you can justify it, if it can legally and justifiably go under a balance sheet, not showing the profit and loss, then of course, numbers look better. Right. Your numbers look better. You're going to have better odds at getting funding.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But then there's going to be times where you're going to go through years where you're like, no, we need to write this off. We need to show this, blah, blah, blah. Do you can do some in-kind donations for nonprofits? Ever heard of in-kind?
Sure.
So it's where you don't actually give a financial whatever.
Yeah. So
but you give something and then they go, here's the value.
Right. And the value. We've done that actually. So we've done that with a lot of like the school organizations and other organizations around here. We've just given like gift baskets to the schools that we can write off the value. Yeah. Yeah. And it's also been good from a business perspective because we've gained new customers through that too as well.
So as we wrap up today's episode, Campground Coffee Camper.
Yep.
At Hickory, North Carolina. You got to come see him if you're out here. And if you're not, travel, come out here, come see him like I did. A few things. One, we're opening, Sooner Marketing's opening a location. We actually just got our address established today. We'll be in Greensboro, North Carolina, expanding out this direction. We established our San Diego office, satellite office a month and a half ago. If you guys didn't know about that, so that's good. You guys made some progress with Sooner Marketing and some line of credit stuff, so that's good. We're working on kind of restructuring some stuff. We've also hired Anna. She just joined our team as a graphic designer. Abel and I are expected to record again with you guys, I think, next Friday. We have News on 6, Chindon with us. She has a couple different businesses, and she's a news anchor, like I just said, on News on 6. And then we have Eric Conkle, the head coach of TU. We're going to be talking about how business and basketball is related. He manages budgets. He manages employees like team members are just like employees. He manages equipment, scheduling. Like it's a lot of the same functions as a business owner would have as a coach. So we're going to learn about some of the correlations in that. That's going to be exciting. But you got to check out brewsandbiz.com. We have lots of new merch on there: the hats, the hoodies, the t-shirts. Some of the new hats are going to be coming out. Got the pint glasses. Those are really cool. I think those are like $15 or something. They're like canned glasses. Those are my favorite. I love those. Those are order on demand. And then if you don't know, we have our own coffee roaster that's based out of Owasso. He's a widowed guy, him and his son. They run the business. They're awesome. They roast those beans to order. They can ship them, deliver them. Of course, if you can order from Brad as well, that'd be great. I don't know if he does it online. Do you ship or anything? Order coffee yet?
We haven't started doing that. We've talked about it, but yeah.
So when he gets to that point, he'll let you know, and then you guys can order coffee from him too. But the Brews Business blend, that will rotate different origins from different places from around the planet. Right now, I believe it's still the Ethiopian blend. You can order that in different sizes. They've also got a really cool subscription and stuff. Use code BREWS for 10% off your first order. And I believe until then, Brad, appreciate you joining, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Thanks for traveling 1,000 miles to have coffee.
Yeah, we did. It was good coffee too. So until then, cheers.
Cheers.